general nature thereof. Seeing none, the agenda, is there any additions to the agenda? Mover and seconder to accept the agenda. Ketchabah.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Councillor French.
Yes.
Councillor Jiguer.
Yes.
Councillor Ketchba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Okay, the minutes from, I think January 2020, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, mover and seconder for the minutes, please.
Jiguer, I'll move.
Moved by Jiguer, seconder.
I'll second it. French.
French. All in favor?
Councillor French.
Yes.
Councillor Jiguer.
Yes.
Councillor Ketchba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Okay, no delegations. Briefing and reports. Number one, the 2021 budget review and approval stages. Jen, are you doing this or who's doing it? Julie?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to members of the Budget Committee. We are presenting a document today that's called Elgin County 2021 Budget Investing in Our Community and 2021 Budget Review and Approval Stages document, which will confirm the Budget Committee's commitment and guiding principles, as well as all of the ways that staff will support the committee in their review of the 2021 budgets. As well, we would like to present a departmental template and supporting materials, which will provide suggestions for how the committee will receive information from each of the departments. So the first document is essentially the guiding principles and schedule document. It outlines the Budget Committee's commitment, which is to review the goals of the Budget Committee and establish key dates for meetings and activities. The Budget Committee is also committed to being accountable and transparent. All budget documents will be available in accessible formats and easy to use and easy to understand language for public consumption. The Budget Committee would like to engage the public in the budget review process and align the 2021 capital and operating budgets with Elgin County Council's strategic plan, as well as the municipal service delivery review. The Budget Committee will undertake a complete review of all budget materials to ensure prudent appropriation of funds. We will support the committee's work in the following ways. We will prepare and promote budget materials by publishing the materials to engage and inform committee members and the public. We will ensure accessible formats are available. We will endeavor to educate the public. We're hoping to have a short video, municipal budgeting one-on-one, to post and promote publicly. We will survey the public at both the beginning and the end of the county's budget process. Part one, what do you want to see in the budget process? And part two, we'll ask the community whether or not we've met their expectations. Promote meeting dates and opportunities for public engagement. Staff will also develop a 2021 budget toolkit, which we hope will help increase public awareness, including expenditures and a 2021 overview of key investments, almost like a snapshot. We will also develop a communications plan and some talking notes for staff and council to champion the completed budget once it has been approved. We will plan and review materials, including preparing departmental budgets, strategies, and priorities, providing an explanation of expenditures as required to explain variances, and a thorough review of past performance and any areas that were overspent and underspent. We will identify priority areas and opportunities for improvement. We'll identify those as proceed, keep them as is, change, or stop providing them. And we'll do so as part of a county-wide approach rather than a siloed or departmental approach. And we will present options to the committee to achieve the best possible outcome. We will prepare agendas and provide the public and the committee members with as much notice as possible for committee meetings. And we have provided a list of tentative dates for the Budget Committee's consideration. And before I go into the departmental presentation, we would be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Excuse me.
Any questions from the committee?
Just a comment, Warden. I like the idea of increasing transparency and public participation into the budget process. I wonder if it might be a little overly ambitious hoping to accomplish all that this year, given we're already at the end of October and looking to have a budget for December and January. In Bayham, what we try to do is we start to solicit comments real early in the year and try to incorporate those views into either the capital and or operating budget as we go along. We've already done our capital for this year. And we will be looking at the operating real early in January. So if that's the template that you're thinking of using, these are great goals. And I really encourage trying to achieve that. But I don't know if there's timing to get it all done in this cycle. But for 2022, I think it'd be great.
Julie?
I think if we got a survey out right away, we could still use that information to make some adjustments, even as we go through the departmental budgets and review the overall budget. So I agree that timelines are really tight. But if it is what the committee desires, then staff will endeavor to undertake this work very quickly in order to meet your expectations.
Okay.
I would agree if you think it can be doable. I'm just saying for another year, this is something that you may want to start well in advance. But if staff think they can do this, bring it on, because the more input we have, it helps our job to make those recommendations to council.
We'll let staff go and see what happens then. Any other comments, Dominique?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, just in fact, on that question, when in part one, what do you want to see in the budget process? Are we actually asking, what do you want to see in the budget? I just wanted to clarify what we would be asking the public. Is it about their priorities on? Can you expand on what we would be asking?
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden, to members of the committee. So the word process really shouldn't be in there. The question was, what do you want to see in the budget? And the whole thought around this was that we would provide them with kind of a pie chart that relayed the county's major areas of expenditure, and then kind of seek feedback from the community about where their money is best spent. So that was the point of that, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Julie, we'll move on.
Great. So just for discussion purposes only, the leadership team put together a draft budget for council and the warden, just to seek the committee's feedback on the departmental presentation. So if you imagined that you'd be receiving 10 of these presentations in a day for each of the core business areas that council provides. Is this the type of information, and does this provide the level of accountability and transparency that the committee hopes to provide through the departmental presentations? Is it answering your questions? So that's kind of what we're hoping to gather feedback on as we go through. And I would encourage you to stop me as I go so that we can make revisions and work through the process. So this draft is presented to get your feedback. We'll make some adjustments, and then we'll prepare to present them back to you on. So the departmental reviews are November the 10th of this year. So we have some time to put together each of our packages. And the information in this draft is just that, it's draft. It's not necessarily accurate. It's for illustrative purposes only. So the county council and warden page, what you'd see for each department is really the leadership team, some photos, give you a bit of information about who those key players are. And I think it might help you think about the budgets if you can see, the key players that you associate with that department. The next page describes the workforce that supports that department. So it would have X number of full-time, part-time staff, how many of those are permanent, how many are contract, any staffing changes over 2020, and any shared positions between departments. So for County Council, because you're not necessarily a department, we would indicate to the community through the committee that you're comprised of nine members from 7 municipalities, et cetera, et cetera. So, and also how the warden is elected, because this budget includes both council and the warden. So it's really just a background information about who supports the work of this department. So department summary, this is where we would detail the services provided by that department. So for example, economic development also includes tourism. So we would detail that there. Identify and include key challenges. So for long-term care, here is where we would identify recruitment as being a primary challenge. And we'd really just want to capture some of the highlights. Describe any links to other departments. So last year we saw there was some confusion during the departmental presentations. For example, when we were talking about long-term care and facility improvements, but then long-term care had an independent presentation. So we're seeking to bring those two departments and any sort of links between departments together in these presentations a bit more seamlessly than what you had experienced last year. As well, we want to include any 2020 successes, and these are high-level efficiencies that we have achieved. And I will note that we'll try to avoid any of the kind of duplicative information, that indicates no one's gone on training, no one's had mileage expenses. So we'll provide those in an overall summary and keep them out of these departmental reviews. I think what the committee would benefit from is seeing the actual efficiencies that have been realized that are not related to COVID. Am I accurate in that assumption?
Yes, I think that's great, Julie.
Great. So budget notes, this would be a description of the line items that might require additional information. So for example, memberships, we'll list for you what those memberships might include, and we'll try to do our best to anticipate what your questions might be in advance of your line-by-line review of the supporting documentation. So an example of the line-by-line review for the warden and council budgets would be revenue and recoveries. It's actually for Southwestern Public Health Board remuneration, but there's no way the public would know that by reading the line-by-line budget. So that's the level of detail that we're hoping to provide to the committee and to the public. Is anything that's not obvious, we'll provide you with more information. And then if you require more information or if we've missed anything, then we'll provide follow-up information. Another one is operating costs includes miscellaneous. And I know that came up last year. The budget committee did discuss things like, well, what is included in miscellaneous? So for the council and warden budget, this includes joint meetings, reception costs, booking halls, council photos, engraving, support for the golf tournament, printing costs, things to support actual council priorities like the strategic plan, print-based surveys, facilitator costs, and we'll confirm if there are any other expenditures that were assigned to this account in 2020. And then anything to be included in the 21 budget will also be confirmed in this budget notes section. So this is the example page. So the description of services, county council and the warden budget support the activities of council and the warden. This is just a general overview of what these budgets include. So it's operating costs, including uniforms, professional development, conferences, meals, mileage, and recognition. So it's, if the public saw council and warden budget, they might assume it is only wages and see a large number and wonder whether that's what council gets in compensation. So we'll clarify that through these slides. As well, key challenges. So there we've noted that conferences and meetings have moved to in person. And in order to make any changes to that particular budget line, I've included a special note here that council would have to amend its procedural bylaw and council policy in order to support changing the per councillor amount for committees and conferences. So there are bigger implications to making a change year over year. So in this case, I'd recommend we keep it status quo, assuming that while it is unlikely that in-person meetings will resume during 2021, there is a chance that halfway through the year, you could have the opportunity to attend AMO in Ottawa, and we may spend some of that. It's going to be a unique year in 2021 because we want to avoid kind of padding the budget, but there's also so many uncertainties. So I think this is one area where I'd recommend it's a kind of nominal amount that's set aside for council conferences. So just leave it as is for a year and save the work of having to amend the policies. Any links to other departments? So there are strong links between council's budget and the warden's budget, which is why they're considered together. 2020 successes, underspent in development, meals, mileage, and 2020 actuals will be provided to committee members to support each presentation. So we don't have that information yet, but you can anticipate that that will be part of the supporting documentation that we provide to you. So the template for the next slide is changes over 2020. And here's where we would propose high-level alterations to programs, projects, and services, as well as the financial implications of those. We would include any new projects, programs, or services, and we would include a high-level description of any additional expenditures, and that should say over 2020, not 2021. Next. So the example here for council, there are no changes to programs and services proposed in 2021. As well, no new programs or services proposed in 2021. And then 2020 forecasted operating costs are significantly lower than the budget because of the pandemic. The 2021 operating budget assumes that inflationary increases will be absorbed. So for the overall 2021 variance over the 2020 budget, here is where we would summarize standard changes like cost of living, so wages, projects, highlight any other major variances and changes year over year. We would identify any major items or asks. And I've put a note here for staff. They have to be prepared to explain them in great detail and identify which items are high risk without adding them or without seeking council's continued investment in those areas. What are the risks to our community's safety and health as a result of, foregoing a bridge replacement or, deferring a road maintenance project? And I've also indicated that staff will prioritize and rank these options. So we'll make it very clear for the committee which ones are related to public health and safety, and we'll also provide some recommendations and options for your consideration. We'll identify any items that we have eliminated from the 2020 budget and provide an explanation as to why. So if we are removing a consultant line from one of the budgets, we'll say that we're taking on that in-house and absorbing that. And then the next slide. So here's the example. For the council and warden budget, you see modest increases in wages and benefits, both at 2% over 2020. And we'll have details once the interim actuals are available. No variances or changes noted year over year, aside from the modest increases in cost of living. And training and development could be adjusted. Committee may direct that staff prepare amendments to the policy. That is an option that the committee may wish to consider. And no items have been eliminated from the 2020 budget. These budgets have remained relatively unchanged year over year. They seem to be appropriate. We don't overspend or underspend in a typical year, though 2020 is unusual. So the next template is consultants. So this is something that came up last year during the budget committee process, was the use of purchase for service or consultants in each department. So no purchase for service or consultants are included in the council and warden budgets, with the exception of occasional facilitator support. And that is contained within the miscellaneous budget line. So, we didn't include a $200,000 consultant fee for any sort of major project. But this is where, if there's consultant report or consultant support required for something like the official plan amendments, this is where it would be highlighted for the committee. So we'd pull it out. The exception there is engineering services, who relies on a lot of consultant support for every project that they undertake. So it's really up to the committee whether for that department you'd like to see each of the consultants detailed. So the budget process, this is where I've suggested that staff personalize this slide to inform the committee of their own approach to their department's budget. Perhaps they considered an enhancement in an area, but opted to exclude it based on a higher priority need within their department or within another department. For some departments, it may be a very straightforward budget process, and I think that's an important comment for the budget committee to hear. So if someone, gave a lot of thought to undertaking a major project within the department and then decided not to include it, I still think it's important for the committee to know that. And then it may indicate to you why it is that they decided not to do it. So maybe it's that they understand there's a lot of pressure on capital infrastructure projects at this time, so they have decided they'll just wait 2 years before presenting it to council. Here, I'd also like staff to show their support for a collective and interdisciplinary approach to budgeting. This was one critical piece of feedback received from committee members, which was there seemed to be some disconnects. We hadn't taken the opportunity to present our departmental budgets to each other because we felt very rushed and we were just trying to get everything ready for the committee. So this year, we do have a bit more time. We'll present our department budgets to each other and we'll know what's included in those budgets and then be able to let you know what areas we are changing as a result of other departments' pressures, etc. So example here, changes to the council and warden budget over 2020 are limited to cost of living increases, and interim actuals will form part of this discussion. So we have prepared the financial position, which reflects 2018 to 2020 average actual, and a couple of notes at the bottom. Next. For 2021 revenue and expenditures, I think even though it's included in the supporting documentation, it's still important to detail and describe all sources of revenue and high-level expenditures. So for council and warden, revenue is really limited to Southwestern Public Health Board of Health remuneration. The key thing to keep in mind here is this is supported by the full budget package, and all committee members will have copies, the public will have copies, but this is really just a snapshot. So if we routinely receive OMPF funding, then we'll note that as a source of revenue. Project-specific funding that has taken place year over year that is anticipated in 2021 will be highlighted on this page. Budget summary. So here's a chart that indicates the 2020 forecasted operating and 2021 budget. So 2021 highlights. Here is where staff will recap any challenges and risks associated with their service or programs. So here's where we'd note enhanced legislative requirements or changes to legislation, health and safety risks. So council's ongoing efforts to reduce the spread of COVID in our community will likely result in ongoing hybrid in-person virtual meetings in 2021. Keynote that that's going to be ongoing for some time. Recap efficiencies identified. So here we would note the conferences, meals, and mileage. And for other departments, you'd see some significant changes in both of these areas. Did you include anything new, exciting, or innovative? Not at this time in these two budgets, but you will see that some departments have some ideas for changes. And what efficiencies have you identified? So limited opportunities exist to say, except for adjustments to meals, refreshments, mileage, miscellaneous, and recognition. But for some departments, the efficiencies list could be quite large, particularly in the areas where we have already started to adopt some digital tools and undertaken some transformation initiatives. So recommendations, here's where we summarize what we are proposing be included in the departmental budget. So that a 2% increase in wages, 2% increase in benefits be included in the 2021 council and warden budgets. So here you may see those recommendations reflect, staff recommend that X project be recommended by the budget committee for inclusion in the 2021 draft budget. Also the increase in wages, increase in benefits, etc. So options, and this is where staff would include suggestions for any changes, along with an explanation as to why they would or wouldn't recommend those changes and the risks associated with making those changes. They would identify potential areas for savings, and if there are no opportunities for savings, staff will provide the committee with an explanation as to why. So that is the sample departmental presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions or make any changes to how you'd like that information relayed to you on November the 10th.
Okay, questions, Julie, on what's been presented so far? I think it's very in-depth. In fact, it's more detailed than I expected, but the more detail, the better.
I would agree. I think this puts it all out there. Should eliminate opportunity for confusion. I particularly like the idea of, particularly if this is going to go to public, that there's a good solid foundation and explanation of what this department is, what it does, its relationship to other departments, what are the opportunities, what are the risks. And I appreciate that. I think it's a step forward in the budgeting process.
Any
Mr.
other
Warden,
comments? Go ahead, Mary.
yes, I want to concur with Councillor Ketchapaw. I think this is really going to be, I know it sounds difficult and it does look like there's going to be a lot of work for staff just to get it started, but I do believe that this is going to pay off in the long run because the more information we have, the better decisions we can make. And I'm sure that we're going to be able to find efficiencies in our budget. And also, I believe, as Councillor Ketchapaw pointed out, it's going to make it easier for the public to understand why we do certain projects and the rationale behind that, or why we're not going to do a project and the rationale. So I applaud all the staff members that have put this together, and I look forward to our next meeting.
One of the unknowns, Julie, and certainly it's a concern to me, and I don't know how you budget this. Long-term care staff has been bumped up by $4, and the province has subsidized that so far. And they indicated they're going to continue that as long as the pandemic is here. It's very difficult all of a sudden to take a $4 an hour cut when the pandemic has passed. And I assume that negotiations would be very, very difficult going forward, and how do we budget for that?
I think in the case of wage supplements and subsidies, I think we would have to react to it rather than pre-plan for the purposes of negotiations.
Yeah,
So a difficult one to consider in open session.
okay. Well, just something that I think we want to be aware of going forward. And that's,
Just a comment, Mr. Warden.
go ahead, Dominique.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's been said. This is a great template. It will provide lots of information. And I wouldn't hesitate to emphasize things that can be stopped. So for example, so I like how you have prompts, for each section. So so if I'm staff, I know what to provide. And I would say in those prompts, don't hesitate to talk about services and programs that can be stopped. And because it's not something that's intuitive, like we tend to carry over everything and then explain and justify what we will do new. So I know you have some references. I think there are more references to savings and efficiencies. But I think to create that new habit of making sure that if we're continuing a program is because we've actually thought about whether it needed to continue. So it's not just an automatic rollout. So well done.
Thanks. We'll certainly include that.
Okay, any other questions or comments on what we've done so far?
No, I think Dominique makes a very good point, and I do agree that we shouldn't be doing things just because we always have. But is there value to it? And are you getting the value of your expectation for that expenditure? And if it isn't, then, I would have every expectation the staff come forward and say, I know you guys have done this, but we haven't figured out why. Tell us, please, because this is the third budget cycle for me. And I got to admit, there are still programs that the county is offering out there that I really don't have a full concept of what it entails. But I think this is going to help unravel that mystery for me.
For sure.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Warden, it's Dominique. I wasn't sure if we were going to look at the slide that was in the package with the actual sort of spreadsheet. Were we going to that, or can I comment on that just to say that I'd love to see actuals from 2019 and 2020 to compare to the 21 budget? That'd be possible.
Good.
I'll let Jim comment on that one.
Jim?
Yeah, we certainly can. Part of it will just be presentation wise, how many columns can you put on without making the font so small that it becomes difficult. So yeah, but we'll take your guidance on that. And if you wish to have it all on one page, or if you'd like to have separate pages with the history, we can do that as well to make it more legible. If you want, we could show you a slide that we have that kind of shows the 5-year history. If that's something that you're interested in seeing.
It would certainly have a trend if we could see a little longer history.
Just give me a moment here and I'll open that up.
Yeah, I would hate to have the format drive the information that we get. We'll figure out the format if that means bigger paper.
Yeah, but this paper is only so big.
Get a big screen, bigger screen.
Proposal for the budget.
So here's an example with the Warden's department. We can show you, we have 2015 through 19 laid out where you can see the history of the actuals over time.
So are you proposing, Jim, perhaps a separate historical record then moving forward with the budget year moving forward on a separate page?
Well, given that when we're presenting the budget, we have 10 years, of various projects. And then if we were to add, even if it was 2 or 3 years of actual. And we can say put it on a different piece of paper. Most of us are going to be viewing it on a screen.
Yeah.
So the paper really doesn't make the difference. It gets to a point where I think it does get difficult for people to see all the numbers that they want to see in one place. So, but
I
like I
agree.
said, we'll take direction. If you want to have 2 numbers laid, an extra couple columns put on the page, we can take a look at that.
I think that would be a benefit, Jim.
Yeah,
So you
'cause
prefer that to having the separate 5-year look of history?
personally, I would say yes. I would rather sacrifice 2 columns in 2029 and 2030 to have actually 19 and 20 actuals
Mm-hmm.
right beside 2021 as opposed to on separate documents.
Okay.
I think it's also important to recognize, Mr. Warden, that while we're going through these departmental budgets, Jim just easily brought up the history on a 5-year average. So when we're going through it, if we have 2 years of actuals as well, and then if we want to see a little deeper trend, I think Jim can accommodate us when we're going through these presentations. So I like to have trend lines. I like to know what's going on, and if we can just simply have staff bring up, boom, then that may facilitate some of the purpose too.
I would just, if I may, Mr. Warden, you to committee members, I would recommend that we don't drop the 2029 and 2030 budget lines only because the committee is considering a 10-year forecast as well.
Okay, and we can accommodate that. We just have an extra page. And it's electronic. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'll have it set up to 8.5 by 14. As I said, it'll just be on your screens. You'll just have to adjust accordingly. So we'll add 19 actual and 20 forecast to what you see there.
Good. Okay, anything else? Julie?
Just a quick review of the proposed schedule would be helpful. That's on the last page of the guiding principles document or the process document. So we're proposing a meeting with all departments, November the 10th. I suspect this would be a full day meeting. So if you have any conflicts on that day, it would be helpful to let us know now. As well, depending on how those departmental meetings go, we've earmarked that staff would be happy to have a second departmental meeting based on the amount of feedback received from the committee. Perhaps you'll provide direction to make significant changes to certain departmental budgets, in which case I think it's appropriate that the committee receive a presentation from that department again. So we could schedule that on an as-needed basis. December the 8th is when we're proposing the steering committee would review the consolidated budget, both operating and capital. January 12th is when council would complete a review of the budget. And the steering committee would meet following council to review any actionable items, tax rate discussion. January 26th, steering committee meeting, where you would review the final details of capital and operating 10-year plans and set proposed tax rates. And then February 9th, county council, we suspect, may be in a position to approve the capital and operating budgets and tax rates for the county.
That's aggressive timeline, but obviously, I think we can do it.
Mr. Warden, for Julie, anticipating some public participation from comment or review or whatever, when do you feel that may be fed into the steering committee? Would that be in December? Or are you thinking these comments would be direct to council? Given the tight timelines, I'm getting that.
That's a great point. And I might even suggest, I think there's that much review required that a second meeting in November for the committee
Right.
would be helpful. So if we had a meeting later in the month, then we'd be able to share the comments received through the survey. And the committee could make a determination at that point as to whether you want to provide some direction to departments to incorporate some of those changes within their budgets based on the feedback received from the public. So that would give us time to make some changes and do another presentation to the committee December the 8th. So last week of November. We suggested dates.
Well, we also have a county council on the 24th, do we not?
Oh, so it might be helpful to schedule a meeting after county council on the 24th.
Well, certainly if everybody's available at that time. I think it makes sense.
So we could also use that time to have second departmental reviews if needed. So anyone who had to go back, do some extra work, bring it back to the committee can do so the afternoon of the 24th.
So through you, Mr. Warden, so November 10th would also be right after the council meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so December 8th is the only problematic date for me. I'm not available that day.
Okay. So perhaps we'll send out a doodle poll sooner rather than
The
later.
7th and the 9th are fine, but not the 8th.
Was it contemplated to have, I guess it's not on my schedule here, calendar, having a council meeting on the 8th? You have the warden's election scheduled for the,
Our procedural bylaw specifies that we have the warden's election at night on the Tuesday
Yes.
and council on the Thursday.
so it's the 10th that you're thinking,
So
council.
10th.
So we
Yes,
have a
after the
council meeting. Right. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So December 10th
Oh, I see. December 10th. Yes.
instead. Yeah. Okay. So then I'm available. Yep.
So everybody's good with the 10th? Obviously, we have county council.
Great.
Okay, so we'll just make that change, Julie?
Yes. Thank you.
Julie, just going back to the November 10th date, do you think we can do this in an afternoon, or do you think it's going to take a little more to do the departmental reviews?
Second. Yeah, definitely the departmental review should be a full day, a full dedicated day for the budget committee.
Right.
I think it was in error that we tried to include it the afternoon of the 10th. The 11th is Remembrance Day.
So what are your suggestions, Julie? We change that from the 10th?
Perhaps to the 9th?
I'm good the 9th.
I am so far.
9th? Is all right with you, Dominique?
I could do the 9th as an all day. Yep.
Mary?
So,
Julie, if you want to do department reviews in advance, so I think you're going to get a little tight on timing. You want to do a review with staff in advance?
I think we can sort that out on our end, Jim. I'm not concerned about that. I'm more concerned about getting the dates established for the committee.
Okay, Mary, was the 9th all right?
I don't have my calendar in front of me, Dave. What day is that of the week?
It's
Monday.
Monday.
I'll have to check with you. I have my scheduler in the other room, so I'll have to check with you. Julie, I think it's gonna work, but I'll let you know immediately if it's not going to.
That's great. Thanks. And we'll send out a doodle poll if it doesn't work.
Okay, between the first and second departmental review, if you need one, how much time do you need? 2 weeks for staff? Do you need a week? Because I was thinking an alternative, if Tuesdays work better, you've got the 17th.
Yeah, I think in order to compile the survey feedback and make amendments to our departmental reviews, we'd be smart to keep it on the 24th.
Fair enough.
Okay, we're good? Okay, let's go back to our agenda. Anything else on briefing and reports, Julie?
That's everything that we wanted to cover. I'll just ask the finance team whether I've missed anything or there's anything you'd like to ask the committee.
Nothing from my end, Julie.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, I think we're good, Julie. Any other business?
Nope, I don't believe so.
No correspondence? No closed session? Our date of next meeting, we've already established. Anything else before we adjourn? Hearing none, motion for adjournment. Ketchba,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Counselor French,
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer,
Yes.
Counselor Ketchba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden,
Yes,
0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.